You guys worked on Zootopia, which was 2 years ago, and Wreck-It Ralph was 6 years ago, right? So how did you guys turn this around in what is essence, I think a little bit like 2 years? How did you divide that up, or what was the deal that you're able
We
to
do
put
it, Clark.
Just coming out of a fog, realizing
coming?
it's been a difficult few years.
Yeah, I'm not used to seeing you every 2 years. I mean,
That's right.
anyway.
Well, we started on this Ralph Breaks the Internet in 2014 and actually worked on it for about a year before jumping onto Zootopia.
Okay,
And
so
in
there
that
was a little
time-
advance work.
Yeah, Phil had written a first draft of the script.
Okay.
Then we were on Zootopia for about a little like
18
a
months,
year,
maybe.
year and a half, and then jumped back into this and took a look at the script and said like, oh, we got to rewrite this. We had a little distance, so
Phil, where did this? Were you the original story, or where did this come from? How did this
Well,
version of
Rich and I,
and sequels aren't exactly what you guys have been doing at Disney.
no, it's the first
So
one.
why did this one make it through the creative leadership team?
Well, Rich directed the first one, and I co-wrote the first Wreck-It Ralph, and we didn't immediately think we were going to do a sequel. We thought it was all nicely buttoned up and everything was just fine. And then when we had the idea, well, maybe we want to spend a little more time with these characters. Maybe a router gets plugged in and Ralph goes and messes up the internet somehow. And that was kind of a fun idea to us, but still there wasn't enough there. So really it wasn't until we looked at the very last line of the first movie, which is, if that kid likes me, how bad can I be? And started thinking, that's sweet, yet highly dysfunctional. He's still defining himself based on how someone else feels about him. So his self-worth is still a little bit wonky, and we'd only met Vanellope like 35 or 40 minutes ago, so she had a whole big story yet. So that was sort of the genesis of why do a sequel and what's it going to be about.
What were the things that you were specifically looking for, and how did you and Phil work together? Did you divide the work up? Or did you have certain things that you were protecting that he was protecting? How did that work?
Well, it's very collaborative. I was working on Moana still. I was writing on Moana when you guys were working out the first story. So I'd come in treatment meetings, and we had talked about things. And so when they were on Zoot, I was wrapping up on Moana, and I came in right after that when it was time to move into the next draft, the next big table draft. I mean, Phil and I go back and forth with lots of things. Sometimes I'll say, I'll take this, and you say, I want to take this. But we still share it with each other. In terms of like the princess scene, that was something when I was working on Moana, I was thinking about a lot. What makes a princess, and what kind of princess does Moana need to be? And then I was like, what are these kinds? And so that kind of stuck around with me. And then I also felt like Vanellope should be canon. I mean, that's the kind of princess I am. I'm like wearing my hoodies. Like, this is it. And so I was like, she should get to be in the parade too. She should have a coronation. And when we knew we wanted to do a Disney meta scene poking fun of ourselves, we were like, well, if Vanellope met all the princesses, that might break the internet.
Sarah, your stand-up comedy persona is very particular.
Similar. Oh, what?
exactly the same.
Not at all. I mean, I think maybe it's your childhood persona before she grew up or something like that. But how do you channel that? How do you go to that? And I mean, I think this is because we're not seeing you. The actress part of you, as opposed to the comedian part of you, is able to come out more. So do you enjoy playing with that, or do you feel that, or is that something that is totally in my head as to the limitation?
Do I feel what?
Do you feel that
sorry.
this allows you to be a little bit more of a character as opposed to your being seen as yourself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Vanellope. I missed her, and it's like getting to play your inner child, and I feel such a kinship with her, down to the comfortable clothes, and so, yeah, I just love, I love being Vanellope, and she's like me, but I go all the way up in my voice, whatever that means. I just go all the way up, like, is this it? Wait, is this it? And they go, yeah, no, that's it.
The higher your hands get, too.
Yeah, I have a lot of
I
mannerisms.
understand that you
turns
and
out.
John would record together, which is not really typical. So talk a little bit about why that was important to the two of you.
It was so great because we got to act. I mean, it's all acting, and even when the person isn't there, like I didn't get to record with Gal, but I recorded then with Pam, or like there were times I recorded with Phil, and they're also actors, and they bring so much to it, and they brought this to life. So there still was a lot of that, but with John, we were always together, and your acting is reacting to the person that you have this dialogue with. So it just was able to be so organic and playful, and we were trying to make each other laugh, and we were trying to make each other feel and cry, and it was really lovely. We always booked like an extra hour at least because we get really gabby.
It seems like this was put together at really breakneck speed for an animated film. And it is also, from looking at it, incredibly complex. I mean, the clearances alone on this film must have given several people a lot of long nights and a lot of sleepless nights. So what was the secret to keeping all of this, the incredible visual texture of this going?
Well, I think once we got excited about the idea of the internet, we knew that the internet needed to feel big and expansive, and it needed to feel like a world that you and I use every single day. So as a result, we said we wanted to use real brands in the films, but because of fair use, we didn't have to actually approach the companies. We could just put them into the film. And that was a huge relief from that standpoint.
Yes, push like here.
Yeah, but we really used our visual development team and our art director to kind of imagine what this world could be. I think that it's easy to say, let's go into the internet. It seems like it's going to be a great, ripe world to do an animation, but what is that? You have to start with nothing. There's no research trip you can take to a country and use that as sort of your visual language. You've got to figure it out, and they did an incredible job of diving in deep and doing the research to figure out how to bring the world to life.
Where was that line that you guys, because you obviously did a lot of things that I think in other times might have been considered, that whole Disney princess scene is loaded with stuff, and it's so hysterical, and people just lose it. And of course, a lot of the kids are going, "Oh, there's my favorite princess."
Right.
The adults are cracking up, So what was that? What was putting that together, and what are the scenes that stayed on the floor for that?
Well, it was a balancing act. It was like this whole movie is filled with like needles being threaded by bridge cable or something. I don't know how we did it, but it was just it's a balancing act. It's like are we going too far with the satire and not enough kind of nods to the respect of the princesses, and we approached it like Phil would say, like, this is like making fun of members of your family, So
I think the
if it's
Pixar
done that way.
The Pixar princess jab was one of the favorites. So anyway,
I think it's so cool that Disney was game for this because really the movie to me is like about looking inward for your happiness and being mindful. Like, Insecurity is the bad guy, his own insecurity. And that is in our lives, our own foes are ourselves. We have met the enemy and they are us. Was that an old Pogo cartoon? But also those are just feelings, and that's all we're made of. And it's okay to feel insecurity and be riddled with those feelings. But as long as we can stop and be mindful of it and wonder, why is it that I'm feeling this way? And so to have on top of this giant theme, this scene with the princesses where Disney itself is looking inward, and we see the progress over many years from like what we now see as a problematic past to something so inclusive and so modern and so reflective more of the world is such a beautiful microcosm in the macrocosm that is the whole movie, or something like that.
so what do you as filmmakers do when you're working with that big a collaborative pool to minimize the insecurity virus? Because I'm sure it's very easy for somebody to plant positive and negative things. So how do you sift through that?
That's a great question. Pam?
So that's how you do it.
I just laughed.
Pam.
Get over your insecurities and answer
Give
your
someone
question.
credit, then let someone else do the work.
Okay.
I think one of the things that really is helpful.
Thanks, Clark.
I'm going serious on this one. Is share the work. It's an incredible thing that we get to experience every single day. There's 900 people in one building in Burbank. The entire movie gets made there. Every aspect, every frame is made in this one building, with the exception of where we score it and our post mixing part of the process. And so every day somebody is creating something new, and whenever you see something that inspires you, it's about sharing it with the team, because there are those moments as you're going through it where people are wondering, how are we going to actually create this world? How are we going to get it done? What is ahead of them can be so huge, but those little kernels of seeing someone's brilliant work says to them it's worth it, and we're going to get there, and it's going to be a movie that they're going to be proud of at the end of the day.
One of the things these guys are so great at is playing to the top of the respect of the room. They respect everybody that comes in, and it makes them do not just their best work, but their best work quickly to keep giving them great work, which is how we can work that fast.
And I think it's easy to forget that, well, there's a huge machine like at our studio that's unlike any other. And it's easy to forget that there are people running that machine. And when you start thinking of it as a thing that, like a vehicle or a car or something that you're running, that's when things go bad. I always have to remind myself, like, the machine is the people, and it's the relationships that we have here that make the product good, and so just approaching it in a humane way, like Pam is saying, and remembering that this is 900 people at the studio, not a big giant machine, that you're running every day and running harder and harder.